Hey, welcome to Thought Thursday with Pastor Josh. A thought is the product of mental activity, that which one thinks. It is a single act or product of thinking, idea, or notion. We're going to talk about what that looks like today on this edition of Thought Thursday. Hey everyone, welcome to Thought Thursday with Pastor Josh. I have to remember what my names are here. Thanks for joining us. This is a continuing conversation. That's probably part of the reason why it's hard for me to remember what day I'm on. This is kind of unusual. I don't usually do this on my podcast, but this week I've decided to do one long conversation that's broken up into our different podcast days, just because I felt like it was connected, and so I wanted to make sure we had some good connectivity in our different podcast days. And so today's Thought Thursday. So what's the thought for Thought Thursday? I've really been thinking a lot about patience and impatience. This is one of the first things that we attempt to learn in life. Even as a baby, as a toddler, one of the first words we have to hear from our parents is, you have to wait, right? Patience, wait. And man, we didn't like it then, and we probably still don't like it now. I don't know how, that might be one of the things that we don't necessarily grow in very fast, is patience, it feels like. Because it feels like we should have this down, right? Well, I tell you what, we definitely don't. I know even with everything going on with the different orders here in Montana, and what we can do and we cannot do, and what we should do and what we shouldn't do, and all these different things we've kind of talked about a little bit. The truth is that I think for the most part, people are getting impatient. They're getting really tired of waiting. The thing about this, though, is that this is going to be the difference maker for a lot of us, is how we handle this. The most important thing about a test is passing the test, right? Because even in class, when you would take a test, you knew that if you didn't pass those tests, eventually it means that you wouldn't pass the class, and then you couldn't move on, right? You had to retake the class. And we see that even in Scripture. We see that with the Israelites. They were 400 years in Egypt, and then they saw God do miraculous things and all the plagues and everything, and God set them free, and Passover lamb, all that stuff. They crossed the Red Sea, like miraculous works. They get through the wilderness. They get to the place where they're going to go into the promised land. They get in there, and they're like, oh, wait a minute. These guys are too big. We can't do this. And then it's like they totally forgot everything from Egypt to promised land. They forgot it all in between. And it's like they had to go through the wilderness 40 years again, a testing period to help them understand this, right? It just seemed like they had to constantly be taught to trust the Lord. And, they didn't like the waiting process. I think about the story of Abraham and Sarah. They were promised a child. They were promised the promised child of Isaac. But what did Sarah say? Hey, you should go sleep with Hagar, and hopefully you'll have a child from her, and then he'll just be our promised child. Sarah, what a terrible idea, right? They basically tried to go figure out how to make the promise work their way instead of God's way, because God was taking too long. And we don't know that for sure, but it does seem like that, right? I mean, it took a long time for this promise to come to fruition. And so instead of waiting, they chose to circumvent the process. And I've heard many pastors say, don't create an Ishmael while waiting for Isaac. And that's good. That's good for us to hear, right? We don't want to be the people who create an Ishmael because we were too impatient to wait for Isaac. And because that is the promise of God, right? And so what is it that God's wanting to do in us? If we don't learn if we don't pass the test and learn the material, how can we expect to be used and proven by God and be used by God the way He intends for us to be, if we're never willing to move on from first grade, right? Do we really want to be held back again and again and again? And now we know God is gracious. We know that He's merciful to us. And that's why I think He gives us test after test after test of the same thing. And He's merciful and compassionate, and He has the ability to, long-suffering, the patience Himself, to deal with us when we are impatient and unable to learn the test, or the lesson from the test. So I just want to encourage us today, don't fail the test. Okay, don't fail to learn the material. Don't fail the test. Learn the material. Take this as a chance to be patient and wait upon God, and don't rush into anything. I find very, very few times where rushing provides the results that we're looking for. So it's okay to wait. God is the God of the long view. I love that. I shared that with you several weeks ago about David Wigginton's book, which, David, if you're ever watching this, I don't know if he watches this or not, just a plug for you. The God of the Long View is a terrific book that talks about this, how God delights to use generations of people. He'll start something in one generation and finish it in another. And he loves to do that kind of thing because he loves to bring more people along for the journey. And so don't be discouraged because you have to be patient, and it's not happening as soon as we want to. We trust God to bring about the proven, the certificate of learning to us at some point. He's faithful to bring us to the point of completion. And so don't fail the test. Learn the material. And I believe as we do that, that we'll see God do some great things in us and through us. This has been Thought Thursday with Pastor Josh. Thanks for tuning in today.